In this video, we're going to look at how we can extend our Mac's display over to an iPad. We basically have three options. We can link our trackpad or mouse to the iPad, so then we can control the iPad and the iPad OS with our trackpad or mouse. We can also extend it as a second display, and we can mirror it. Let's see how we can do this on our Mac and our iPad. We're first going to take a look at an overview of my iPad and Mac so you can see what I'm working with here. Let's go over to my Mac and iPad. So I'm working with a MacBook Air running macOS Ventura, and I have an iPad. This is an older iPad Pro running iPad OS 16. Now what I'm able to do is use this iPad as a second monitor for my Mac. I can mirror what is on my Mac over to my iPad, or I can just use it as a straight second monitor. I can also my iPad use an iPad OS with my Mac's trackpad. If you had a mouse, you'd be able to do it with a mouse. Those are the three things that we can do. Control the iPad with the trackpad. We can mirror what's on our Mac over to the iPad, and then we can also use that as a second display. Now, we're going to take a closer look at my two devices here. The first thing that we need to do is make sure that you are signed in with the same iCloud account on both devices, and Bluetooth doesn't need to be on. Those are the requirements. So when we go up to my system settings here on my Mac, you're going to see that I'm signed in as Johnny Appleseed, and I do have, let's go over to Bluetooth here, I do have Bluetooth on. Now, when we go over to the iPad, we need to make sure that we're signed in with the same account. So I'm going to go to my settings here, and I'm signed in as Johnny Appleseed, and I do have Bluetooth on. Okay, so we're all set. We've got the requirements. We've met the requirements. Now, how does this work? Well, basically, all we have to do is just move our cursor over to the iPad. We're going to first look at how we can link our trackpad up to the iPad, because this is going to be how it's set up by default. So what I'd like to do is control my iPad with my trackpad on my Mac. All I need to do is just bring my cursor over to the edge of the display here. Now, this does matter when you first set this up, which display or which edge you bring it to. My iPad, remember, is on the left side of my MacBook Air. So I want to make sure that I bring my cursor up to the left side of my display on my MacBook Air. This is how the Mac determines where my iPad is. If I were to bring my cursor over here to the right, my Mac would think that it was over on the right, which it isn't. So what I need to do is I need to bring it over to the left side here. I'll show you how you can rearrange that later on in the video. But right now I'm just going to bring it over to my left edge here because my iPad is on the left side. The Mac does not really know where that iPad is. It can't detect where that iPad is physically. All it does is just know where you brought that cursor, and then it makes an assumption, oh, your iPad's over here. So you want to do that first. You want to make sure that you use the right edge first. And again, I'll show you where you can change that down the road. All right, so I have my cursor over here on the left edge. Now watch what happens when I bring it all the way over to the edge. We can see it brought it over to my iPad. I'm actually controlling my iPad with my trackpad. Let's go back over to my overview. We can see that I'm controlling my iPad here. I swipe up, I get to the home screen. I bring my cursor back, and now it's back on my Mac. So that's how we can link them. All we have to do is just bring our cursor over. Now I'm controlling the iPad. I could have mail open here. I could have notes in here. I bring back my cursor here. I'm working on my Mac. So this is an easy way to just have an app running on your iPad and then still work on your Mac. You need to go over to your iPad, just bring the cursor over, control what you're doing, bring it back over to the Mac. That's how it is set up by default. Now I mentioned that we can also use the iPad as a second display. How do we do that? Well, basically what we need to do is we need to go to our system settings on the Mac. So I go to my system settings here, and then what we do is we go over to displays. When we're looking at our displays, you're going to see the iPad there. So as far as the Mac is concerned, this is just another display. So now all I need to do is just click on it. We do need to select it. And once I select it, I'm able to make changes to it. I can go and set it to extend or mirror my display. So now instead of using iPad OS, when I select this, what it's going to do is mirror my Mac. So when I move this window around, you can see that it is moving around on the iPad. At this point, the iPad is just another display. I should mention that this is also wireless, so it's pretty cool how it all works. Now let's say you wanted to extend the display. You don't want it to mirror it. Well, then what you do is you select it again, and then instead of mirror, what you want to do is stop mirroring. When you stop mirroring, it makes it an extended display. So now what I'm able to do is bring my window over here to my iPad. Again, at this point, it is just another display to the Mac. Bring it back, and now I'm looking at my Mac here. I can open up another window. Let's bring my Finder over here. Again, it's just another display at this point. Now, when you do have it in this extended display, you're going to see that we do have some options over here on the left side. What I'm able to do is simulate key commands here. We can see we have different key commands here. I can turn on the keyboard here on the iPad. If I wanted to turn it off, I tap on the bottom button here. So I'm going to go to my overview here, and you can see these all over here. So we do have different options here to control it from our iPad. Now you'll notice that I am not able to use this as a touch screen, so we can't use this as a touch screen. I can turn on the keyboard here, but I can't use this as a touch screen. I will have to use the trackpad on the Mac to control it. Now let's go back over to my Mac here, and let's see how we can arrange these windows. So let's say I move my iPad over to my right side. How can I tell my Mac that it's over on the right side? I don't want to go to the left edge to control it. I want to go over to the right edge to control it. Well, that's where we have arrange here. What I'm able to do is arrange this, and all I have to do is just take my iPad here and drag it over to the right side. When I do that, what it's going to do is tell the Mac that my iPad is now on the right side. So now when I bring my cursor over to the right side, watch what happens. It's going to jump over to my iPad. I bring it back over to the left, it brings it over to my iPad. So basically what I'm able to do now is just move my iPad over to the right side here, and then it'll be like two displays next to each other here. Now we do have a few advanced features here. Basically just want to make sure that these are turned on. Let's take a look at these. I'm going to click on Advanced. Our first option here is to allow your pointer and keyboard to move between any nearby Mac or iPad. We want to make sure that this is turned on. This is how I can go and move my cursor over to my Mac here. So we want to make sure that that is turned on. You could also do this with a Mac. You're going to see that it does say Mac here. We also have push through the edge of a display to connect to a nearby Mac or iPad. What this does is this will allow you to push through the edge of a display. So I have my cursor here on the edge. When I go over to the left, what it can do is it can push through, and you're going to see that it actually connected to my iPad there. It pushed through on my iPad, even though it's on the left side. So we can tell it to push through. I want to connect up to my iPad. Push through there. So I will usually leave that on as well. And then we can have it automatically reconnect to any nearby Mac or iPad. Of course, you want to leave this on as well. So basically, just want to make sure that these are turned on. Now, what I want to do is bring it back to the default behavior. I'd like to have it back as a linked display. I want to control my iPad OS 16 with my trackpad. That's typically how I will use it. So I just go to Done here. I make sure I select my iPad. And then I just go over here to Extended Display, and I say use this as a linked keyboard and mouse. Now my iPad, let's go ahead and make sure that it is awake here. Now my iPad, what I'm able to do is control it with my trackpad. So that is how we can use an iPad as an extended display on our Mac. In order to make all of this work, you need to make sure that you're using iPad OS 16 or Mac OS Ventura. I would recommend using the latest versions of Mac OS. I believe they introduced this last year, but it seems to be far less buggy in the latest versions of iPad OS and Mac OS. Also, you need to make sure that you're signed in with the same iCloud account, and you need to have Bluetooth on. So that's how we can set up our Mac to use our iPad as a second display.